Okay. So I have been contemplating technology recently and the effects of it and how we may not truly know the true role that it plays in our lives. I used to think the way that most of us do about it, that it's mostly good, but of course it can be in the wrong hands, it can be bad, right? And of course it's man-made. I mean, of course. Like, who else is here on Earth to make technology but mankind, right? Right? Well, I've been thinking about a lot of things, and I remembered something that stuck with me, something I came across a long time ago about some denomination. I think it was Seventh-day Adventist, but something along the lines that they basically believe that technology is satanic, that it's a satanic weapon. I don't even know if they say necessarily that it's a weapon, but just that that it's demonic, basically. And of course, I dismissed that at the time because not only because religious people have a tendency to get stigmatized for their beliefs and their black and white treatment of things, but aside from that, I felt like I had what was solid proof that technology was good. I mean, my refrigerator is great. I love my light bulb, my hot shower, my dryer, and my washer, and my toilet, and my plumbing, and my power tools, and my microwave, and my computer, of course, phone. Yeah, we've got a lot of technology. In fact, take away any one of these technologies and our life changes drastically. Now you take them all away at once, and you got a real problem because, we have a very heavy reliance on technology in society these days, of course. And we understand that, and we understand that there's no way of ever being able to fully function and further society without it at this point, at least in America. So we, as a nation, we've put appropriate backup measures in place in case it all just comes crashing down. I mean, we've got backups upon backups. Oh, you know what? Actually, we don't. No, we don't. That's wrong. We actually have, at this point, no backups whatsoever. In fact, and I was thinking about this, I watched this YouTube video, and it was talking about how our technology, when it comes to electricity and power lines, has not progressed at all. Curiously, we still have streets lined with these kind of garish looking power lines attached to wood posts, which we haven't seen fit to update since we started harnessing this electricity for 100 years, which is kind of interesting when you think of the internet starting 2, maybe 3 decades ago, to be technical, and now you've got Google freaking using fiber optics to get your entire city wired with wireless access that's faster than your eye blinks. And how about the fact that cell phones are taking better pictures? I mean, the cell phone that's cracked screen, with a broken back on the ground, that somebody just discarded and just went and bought another one, that phone takes better pictures than my camera that I bought 2 years ago, that is just, its only job is to take pictures. But yeah, for some reason 100 years of technology for electricity hasn't gone anywhere. We still can't do better than freaking metal wires stretched across America. Yeah, that's kind of, it's almost a little suspicious that it's so weak and exposed like that. Just so any old body can just, take a scissor to a power line and, like, put the whole city in shambles. I mean, that can't be an accident, right? And then you think about something like television. Just the discovery and the invention of it in general, which I'm sure when it started, men could not conceive of its future implications, but there's no denying that TV, it's called programming for a reason. The science has long been in on this. Like, spoiler alert, it really does rot your brain. Like, it rots your brain. And, not only that, but it changes the way people think about things. Like, whole groups of people. TV shows have openly been credited by serious and not so serious critics, like, and historians, for changing the mindsets of, like, entire cultural norms. Like, I just watched something the other day about, gay people championing Will and Grace, and how it's done more for, I think it was Joe Biden saying that Will and Grace has done more for gay people than any movement. That's a big deal. He was kind of saying it to be kind of cool and relevant, but it's true, and it's kind of scary. The internet too is the same way. It was cool at first, and then within years, internet porn came in and just completely decimated society from the inside. Like, just a wave, like atomic bomb, like actually more concentrated than an atomic bomb. At least, well, I'd say more effectively, really, than an atomic bomb, because it was not random, not wherever it landed. It was systematic. It was thorough. Like, this is like termite infested house thorough. And I know people are probably like, what? Porn? No. Decimation? That's a little harsh. Well, we do a good job of hiding those things that we agree, like, with everything within us, that we will not let people know ever. But that's okay, because we don't have to tell anybody. The numbers are in on that, so. And these porn sites are not just like these little mom and pop shops of entrepreneurs, okay? They're keeping track of our viewership. Like, the stats didn't just come from wherever. And if you need any other proof, we'll have it. We're having it now with the teen boys that are growing up in this generation. At this point, even if we kept all of our daughters locked up until they're 30 and married, they're going to feel the effects of this porn epidemic. Okay? Because the dudes' brains are so rewired for pornography. Like, now, first of all, they're trying stuff on their girlfriends, and the girlfriends are just, like, looking at them with, like, wide-eyed horror, like, what the heck was that? And the guys are like, what? Like, genuinely surprised that girls aren't really into that. That's what's happening. That's what counselors and psychologists are documenting. Like, just the sheer, like, bewilderment of, like, you mean you don't like when people, like, pour dirt in your anus? Like, that's awesome. Like, according to this thing that I watch, you should love it. So that's happening. And then on top of that, actual intimacy is becoming more foreign and kind of difficult and kind of boring to these people. So while it's great that we have the internet and, you know, this influx of information, it's coming at a price of really hateful commentary and people committing suicide after their pictures are being posted, and the dehumanization of men and their objectification of women, which we do not need help with. So, but it's just weird because every time we have these conversations, it's a constant thing of like, well, the good outweighs the bad, which we all kind of say unquestioningly with technology. And I really think that's just kind of a roundabout way of saying, well, I'm not getting rid of my computer, so we're just going to have to deal with it. Like, I need to watch my HBO Go and my HD TV, so y'all just need to handle it, basically. I mean, we're addicted to it. We're accustomed to it, and nowadays people do not like the idea of getting rid of something just because of its potential to corrupt. Like, we literally cannot conceive of doing that. Oh, this might cause some damage? Okay, that people would laugh at you if you said that. Like, we have to fall feet first and get knee deep in crap before we're going to rethink whether we're going to get rid of something or not. And more often than not, we just don't do that. Yeah. And we say that that's about freedom and all that stuff. And actually, even Christians nowadays, like, we used to say that kind of thing too, where we would say this is bad and people should just not come near it. And I remember growing up, that used to be the debate. It was like, should we get rid of this before it harms other people, or should we keep it? And, you know, Christians would be called puritanical. I mean, that was like the worst thing you could be called. I mean, it was so derivative, and it was so like, you're just so behind the times and so irrelevant, and, you know, the same thing that we're scared of today, but with different words. But I just remember puritanical being the big word of power that you could use against Christians to make them seem not cool. But now you don't hear that anymore, which means that we have kind of progressed into, I guess, either concession, giving in to the pressure of just letting people do whatever they want and live and let live and all that. I think people think that once we find out something is truly bad for us, we'll actually stop using it. But not only is there no evidence for that, there's like a huge, massive case for the opposite. Like, it goes from use to abuse every time. And the other thing I was thinking about too was even something as simple as the car. I watched this thing a long time ago about the car being this revolutionary thing because, as this guy pointed out, that it was one of the first technologies that came along that could physically separate the adults from the children. Meaning, like, the teenage boy would take his dad's car out and pick up a girl for a first date, and they would go in the car. And, like, this was the first time in history where families were separated. I mean, before that, it must have been, I don't know, I guess, you know, you came to the family's house and you would be in, maybe you would go have a separate room, kind of, maybe like a parlor or something, but that was it. Like, that was as far away as you got. And this was the first time of a physical separation between parents and children. And it just, something about that just it was just chilling to me. I'm like, so you're telling me, but up to this point in history, like barely 100 years ago, up to that point, you had to like go to great lengths to get away from your family, from your community, like up to 100 years ago. I mean, that's a huge shift. Now you got any old person can just get you in a car and take you somewhere far away quickly. And I mean, the cars, if you look at the cars from the 50s and 60s, I mean, these were giant. I mean, they're basically couches on wheels, okay? So, I mean, so what were you doing in your couch on wheels? Not only that, but you have Elvis and the Beatles, and I mean, there's a little bit of span of time between those groups, but what do you have coming along but this term called rock and roll, which people debate on where that term came from, but basically it's about having sex. I mean, it comes from having sex in a car, rocking and rolling or whatever. I mean, it's based on like boats and the whatever. That was like the 18th century or the 17th century meaning of it. Boats rocking and rolling on the ocean, and then now it's suddenly becoming the name of music. At the time when the automobile is becoming so industrially made, widespread, like everyone has one, and they're able to separate people from their families. Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, do you get where I'm going with this? TV, internet, cars, like, it seems like every single technology has this like major, maybe you don't think of it as a downside, but a major shift that leads to another shift that oddly leads to us taking more clothes off. Like, you know, like, what is that about? And the other day I was watching The View, which I know, but I was watching The View, and Whoopi was on there, and she was like reminiscing about the bad old days of the 60s when mothers used to shame their daughters, after they got pregnant, and have them go away for a while, and then sometimes they would come back with a baby, but usually they would come back with no baby, and but now we have birth control and Planned Parenthood, and the social stigma is gone, and it's just so much better. We don't have to live in those dark ages, and freedom from women, blah, blah, blah. And when she said that, I was thinking about that, and I was like, that period of time was actually quite short. It was between this period that she's talking about. I mean, because right after that was like free love and hippies and all that stuff, and that kind of went by the wayside. So this was a very short period in history where you had girls going away, because they had to get rid of or handle or take care of a baby, right? Well, what could have brought something like that on? Something so short that seemed to kind of come and go really quickly. Well, I don't know. You got this car thing happening that's taking your kids away from you. I mean, this is the 50s and 60s. You got rock and roll coming out, blowing people's minds. You go and look on any YouTube clip of some band on 50s and 60s TV, and all you hear is screaming. You can barely hear the music because it's just screaming girls. And you've got these women, these mothers, probably born during the Depression. Like, can you blame them for handling it the way that they did? That probably seemed like a pandemic of like the flu or something. Like, it just came out of nowhere. It just converged. There was nothing in their trajectory that could have prepared them for their teen daughter coming home pregnant. I mean, that means that they have had sex. Like, I mean, they're going straight to no more conversation. Now it's like, get rid of it. Like, this was during an era that was so tame that when we look back at it, it's like awkward to look at because it's just so squeaked out clean. And you got these 16-year-old girls coming home pregnant in that same environment. And they don't know what's after that. They don't know that, the free love movement and hippies and, gay revolutions and AIDS epidemics and all that stuff is just going to blow the whole thing wide open. And then, like, the envelope was just going to be pushed from that moment on. They didn't know that. They didn't know that the 50s was just going to be a decade and many decades. They thought this was culture. Things are clean. Things are wholesome. That's the way things are. They didn't go, in 10 years, nobody's going to care. They didn't know that all of this stuff, while they were looking at their wholesome TV and their shiny car and this kind of troubling rock and roll, that this was like really just Pandora's box being opened in front of their eyes and never being shut again. Like, they did not know that. So, and they sure didn't know that it was happening everywhere, down the street, up the street, next door, everywhere. So you got these mothers who are kind of en masse doing what they thought, maybe not what they thought was right, but it was a knee-jerk reaction. They just were like, you need to have a good life. Like, we got to do something. Like, it wasn't just about shaming the community. It wasn't just scarlet letter stuff. This was like them trying to, I can just see all of these women trying to, like, keep up with, like, wait, what? Like, it just was happening all at once. I don't know. I said all that to say, like, when you really take a step back and look at the scorecard for technology, it looks pretty, like, sinister. Like, it always starts out very promising, always exciting. We're always told about all the immense breakthroughs and the potential to change the world forever for the better and the great strides and blah-de-blue-de-blah. And it's always like this super hyped up scientist, like, on the eve of some new discovery, and they're saying a bunch of terms that they know that we don't understand, but they're just so excited. And they're all, like, kind of naive about the possibilities of the future. And, we kind of buy it. We buy into their optimism. And the public kind of believes that they're not up to anything sinister. For the most part, scientists have kind of, like, replaced what would be in, like, the 20th century or 19th century, like, the ministers and the preachers and the people that you hold in high regard back in the day. Like, these were the authoritative people, and now it's scientists. The scientists are the ones that tell us it's okay to step into the unknown. So it's kind of strange, because they're really taking over a kind of a spiritual job. And who knows? I mean, I've heard some very strange accounts about alien technology, alien life forms. And, like, really, I think about, like, that movie Contact, which used to be one of my favorite movies growing up. And now that when I look back at that movie, it just is really eerie and entirely sinister and, like, diabolical, because you have this alien technology given to you by aliens in a way that you can understand, that to the naive person it's like an extended olive branch and this, journey that you're about to go on. But to me, it's like that weirdo episode of, like, Twilight Zone where the guy gets a cookbook and the aliens are like, yeah, well, we're going to have you over for dinner. Like, you need to know what they're talking about. What do they mean when they say they want to have you for dinner, is all I'm saying. So, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody has looked into the things that the future technologies, but I mean, they're talking about making cyborgs, making surrogates, cloned people, babies made with 3 people's DNA. I mean, it's getting majorly weird. And these technologies, they promise power, superpowers even. I mean, look at these movies, these commercials. You know, we got Superman movies and Iron Man movies and all these movies coming out every year. You know, when they come to alter us in some way, we're going to think it's cool. We're going to be like, I could be like Superman. I can be like Spider-Man. They're showing us an idealized version of something that is probably going to lead to our mass slavery. Because when looking in just the last 100 years, the people in the 50s were promised utopia. They were promised the future. Dishwashers and cutting your domesticity in half and all of this stuff. And somehow it just ends up costing us more than we would have paid. Our freedom, our identity, our beliefs in God. And then we're kind of worse than we left off afterwards. We can't really put our finger on it, but every generation says the same thing. It's getting worse, it's getting worse. And then we get people going, nah, it's not, it's just different. It's not worse, it's different. And then here comes the stats. We've got more people who are able to read, who are literate, who can support themselves and have the right to free blah 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 than any other time in history, blah blah blah. Really? I mean, some of those are probably fudged, but what's probably happening is those things are true, and we're being convinced that those things are unquestionably progressive. The rise in literacy and the rise in the ability to choose to have a Big Mac over a Quarter Pounder. I mean, these things are probably just drummed up stats from the enemy to convince us that we live in a better, freer time, when he really knows that none of those things matter and none of those things are going to change our fallen human nature. I mean, we've got more free time than probably any crop of humans that has ever lived on the planet. And we're more selfish. We're bored out of our minds. We're lost. We're aimless. We're self-centered. We're cold. I mean, people are injuring themselves looking down at phones. We're zombie-like. And I think the Amish might have the right idea. Because are their lives drama-free? No, but they have community. They have the fundamental things that God wanted us to have. I mean, I think there's good technologies that I feel like are God-given technologies, and those technologies, they don't die out. They don't need to be constantly updated. They don't cost you an arm and a leg. You don't need it to survive or to have identity. Something like books that people don't probably consider a technology is a technology. It is a technology that's so superior that it really hasn't been matched for thousands of years. It's like on top. Writing. I mean, language. Turning those things that you're saying into symbols that everyone can read. I mean, that's a technology. That's a technology. The alphabet, that's a technology. This kind of weird, spacey stuff that we have, where we got to trade in a part of our soul in order to use it, that's something else. That's something else. Wheelbarrow, technology. The iPhone, probably an instrument of Satan. So yeah, just think a little more critically about your technology, folks. That's all I'm saying. Okay, I guess I'll pray. Lord, I pray that we all take a moment to turn off our technologies and listen to the sounds of nature. Get out of the city that makes us think that God is not necessary, and help us to see that you are the true creator of everything, and that every natural thing makes every synthetic thing look ridiculous. Just pray that you would turn our hearts back to you and help us to use our time that we have acquired wisely, our prosperity that we have, whatever part of the world we're in. Help us to be grateful, resourceful, dependent on you alone. And we thank you. We give you glory and honor and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.